You defend yourself like a guilty child every time someone questions you, racing to explain, desperate to be understood, frantically listing evidence of your innocence. You actually think this makes you look strong. It doesn't. It makes you look pathetic. Every defense is a confession of weakness. Every explanation is an admission that their opinion controls you. Every justification is proof that you can be manipulated with nothing but words. If this message found its way to you right now while you're tired of being pushed around, while you're sick of always explaining yourself, it's because you pulled it into your reality. You're ready to learn why the most powerful people never defend themselves, why silence terrifies accusers, why the person who doesn't react always wins, and why your desperate need to be understood is the very thing destroying your power. You think defending yourself makes you look innocent. You think explaining yourself clears the air. You think justifying your actions wins people over. You're playing the game exactly how they want you to play it. And that's why you keep losing. Every single time someone questions you, challenges you, or accuses you, you do that pathetic little dance. You lean forward. You raise your voice slightly. You start with those desperate words. That's not what I meant. Let me explain. You don't understand. And right there, in that split second, you just handed them everything. Your power, your frame, your dignity, all of it, gone. Because you fell for the oldest trap in human psychology, the belief that truth needs defense. If you genuinely enjoy this kind of content, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. It really helps. Here's what you don't understand about power. The moment you defend yourself, you accept their authority to judge you. You literally place yourself beneath them. You're saying their opinion matters enough to correct it. You're admitting they have the right to put you on trial. And once you give them that position, you never get it back. They own the conversation. They control the narrative. They decide if your defense is good enough. Meanwhile, you're there scrambling like a child caught with their hand in the cookie jar. You believe people attack you because they want the truth. Wrong. Dead wrong. They attack you because they want a reaction. They want to see you squirm. They want to watch you lose composure. They want proof that they got under your skin. And you, like a predictable fool, give them exactly what they want every single time. You explain. You justify. You clarify. You literally feed their need for dominance while thinking you're protecting yourself. Let me tell you about human nature. When someone accuses you of something, anything, and you immediately defend yourself, here's what happens in their mind. First, they think you're guilty. Why else would you react so strongly? Second, they smell weakness. Only the insecure need to explain themselves. Third, they feel validated. Your reaction proves their accusation had weight. Fourth, they gain confidence. Now they know exactly how to hurt you next time. You just gave them a blueprint to your emotional buttons. You think you're being reasonable when you defend yourself. You think you're being mature. You think you're taking the high road. No, you're being played every single time. Because while you're busy explaining why you're not what they said you are, everyone watching is thinking one thing. If it wasn't true, why is he trying so hard to convince us? Think about the last time someone called you selfish. What did you do? You probably launched into examples of how generous you are. You listed all the times you helped people. You explained your good intentions. And what happened? Did they suddenly say, oh, you're right, you're not selfish at all? No, they doubled down. They found new angles. They kept pushing because your defense didn't prove your innocence. It proved you could be controlled. You've been trained since childhood to explain yourself. When the teacher asked why you didn't do your homework, you explained. When your parents questioned your choices, you justified. When friends challenged your decisions, you defended. And this training turned you into exactly what you are today. Someone who hands over their power the moment anyone questions them. Let me paint you a picture of what really happens when you defend yourself. You're at work. A colleague says in front of everyone that your idea won't work because you never think things through. You feel that heat rising in your chest. You open your mouth. You start explaining how much research you did. You list your qualifications. You give examples of past successes. And while you're doing all this defending, everyone in that room is watching something else entirely. They're watching you crack. They're watching you prove that the accusation hit a nerve. They're watching you look desperate. Now imagine if you had done nothing. Just looked at them for 2 seconds, then continued as if nothing happened. The entire room would have shifted. People would wonder why you didn't react. They'd question if the accusation was baseless. They'd see your accuser as petty, and you'd look untouchable. You defend yourself because you're addicted to being understood. You have this naive belief that if people just knew your side of the story, everything would be fine. But being understood is not power. Being understood is submission. It's you begging for approval. It's you needing validation. It's you saying your worth depends on their opinion. Here's what Machiavelli understood that you don't. In any social interaction, there's a frame. Someone controls it. Someone sets the terms. When you defend yourself, you accept their frame. You're playing in their arena by their rules. But when you refuse to defend, you force them to play in yours. And your arena has only one rule. You don't acknowledge attacks that are beneath you. You know what your biggest weakness is. You care too much about your reputation. You think it needs constant maintenance. You think every attack needs a response. You think every lie needs correcting. So you spend your life in defense mode. Always explaining. Always justifying. Always trying to control what people think. And that constant need for reputation management makes you look exactly like what you're trying not to look like. Weak. Let me share a truth that will sting. Every time you've defended yourself in the past year, you've lost. Even when you thought you won the argument, even when people agreed with you, you still lost. Because you showed them you could be baited. You showed them you're reactive. You showed them that their words have power over you. And once people know they have power over you, they never stop using it. Drop a comment below if you've ever defended yourself and immediately regretted it afterward. I want to know what situation made you realize that explaining yourself only made things worse. The really pathetic part. You think you're being strong when you stand up for yourself. You think you're showing backbone, but real strength doesn't need to announce itself. Real strength doesn't need to justify itself. Real strength is so secure that accusations bounce off like rain on steel. You're not strong, you're fragile, and your constant defending proves it to everyone watching. Here's the brutal reality. People don't accuse you because they believe what they're saying. They accuse you to see if you'll break. It's a test. And every time you defend yourself, you fail. You fail because you show them that their opinion matters. You fail because you reveal your insecurities. You fail because you prove you're not as confident as you pretend to be. You've created a pattern. Someone attacks, you defend. Someone questions, you explain. Someone challenges, you justify. And this pattern has trained everyone around you. They know exactly how to get a reaction. They know exactly what buttons to push. They know exactly how to make you dance. You've literally programmed the people in your life to see you as someone who needs to prove themselves. You want to know what real power looks like. It's the person who gets accused of being cold, manipulative, or arrogant, and simply continues their conversation as if nothing was said. No flinch, no tension, no acknowledgement. Just pure, undisturbed presence. And you know what happens next? The accuser starts stammering. They repeat themselves. They look around for support. They feel the weight of their own words hanging in dead air. Because silence, when delivered with confidence, is the most violent response you can give. But you can't do that, can you? You're too emotional. You're too reactive. You're too desperate to be liked. So instead of using silence as a weapon, you fill every gap with explanations. You treat every pause like an emergency that needs your words to fix it. You literally cannot handle the discomfort of letting an accusation hang unanswered. And that inability to hold silence is exactly why people keep attacking you. Here's what you need to understand about human psychology. When someone attacks you and you don't respond, their brain goes into overdrive. They start questioning themselves. Did I go too far? Do I look petty right now? Why isn't this working? Does he know something I don't? Are other people judging me for this? That internal spiral is your victory. You didn't have to say a word, but you made them fight themselves. You think silence makes you look guilty. Wrong. Silence makes you look dangerous, because only someone with real power can afford to ignore attacks. Only someone truly secure doesn't need to correct the record. Only someone who knows their worth doesn't beg for understanding. When you stay silent, you're not admitting guilt. You're demonstrating that the accusation is so beneath you, it doesn't even deserve acknowledgement. Let me teach you something about social dynamics that will change your life. In every interaction, someone leads and someone follows. The person who reacts follows. The person who remains still leads. When you defend yourself, you're following their lead. You're dancing to their music. You're playing their game. But when you refuse to react, you force them to follow your lead. And your lead is simple. This conversation happens on my terms or not at all. You've been in situations where someone tried to embarrass you publicly. Maybe they brought up your past mistakes. Maybe they questioned your competence. Maybe they made a joke at your expense. And what did you do? You laughed nervously. You tried to deflect. You made excuses. You turned red. You proved to everyone watching that you could be rattled. Now imagine if you had just looked at them with complete calm and changed the subject. Not angry, not defensive, just utterly unmoved. The entire dynamic would have shifted instantly. Here's a tactic you're too scared to use. When someone accuses you of something, pause for 3 full seconds. Look at them like you're studying an insect. Then say 2 words. You done. Not angry, not sarcastic, just calm and slightly bored. Watch what happens. They'll either backtrack immediately or dig themselves deeper. Either way, you win. Because you just showed everyone that their attack meant so little. You're checking if they have anything else before moving on. You know why you can't do this? Because you're addicted to being seen as nice. You think being nice protects you. You think if you're just agreeable enough, people won't attack you. But nice is not respect. Nice is permission. Permission to walk all over you. Permission to test your boundaries. Permission to see how much you'll take before you break. And you keep giving that permission every time you defend yourself sweetly. Let me tell you about the most powerful response to any accusation. It's not silence. It's not a comeback. It's this. Okay, just that. Nothing else. Someone calls you manipulative? Okay. Someone says you're selfish? Okay. Someone claims you're fake? Okay. You know what this does? It gives them nothing, no energy to feed on, no reaction to analyze, no defense to pick apart, just acknowledgement without agreement, and that drives attackers insane. You're sitting there thinking this won't work in your situation. You think your boss, your partner, your family, they need explanations. They deserve answers. No. They've trained you to think that. They've conditioned you to believe that you owe them justification for your existence. And you've accepted this conditioning so deeply that you can't imagine not explaining yourself. That's not respect for others. That's slavery to opinion. Here's what happens when you stop defending yourself consistently. First week, people push harder. They're confused. They're testing if this is real. Second week, they start feeling uncomfortable. Their attacks feel hollow. Third week, they begin to respect the boundary. Fourth week, they stop trying, because attacking someone who doesn't react is like punching water. It's exhausting and pointless. But you won't last 4 days, let alone 4 weeks. You know why? Because you're weak. You'll cave at the first sign of disapproval. Someone will give you the silent treatment and you'll start explaining yourself just to break the tension. Someone will look disappointed and you'll launch into justifications. Someone will question your character and you'll provide your whole life story as evidence. You're predictable. And predictable people never have power. What's your biggest fear? That people will believe the lies about you if you don't correct them. Let me destroy that fear right now. People who want to think badly of you will do it regardless of your defense. People who know your worth don't need your explanation. And people on the fence? They're watching your reaction, not listening to your words. Your defense doesn't change minds. Your composure does. Tell me in the comments about a time when someone's silence made you respect them more than any words could have. When did you see someone refuse to defend themselves and think, that person is untouchable? You want to know the real secret? The less you defend yourself, the more others will defend you. Because when you don't react to attacks, other people feel compelled to step in. They'll say things like, why are you going after him like that? Or, that was unnecessary. Or, he didn't even respond, and you're still talking about it. You create defenders by not defending. You build an army by not fighting. You gain support by not seeking it. Here's what you don't realize. Every time you defend yourself, you're also attacking yourself. You're admitting the accusation has merit. You're acknowledging it deserves response. You're validating its existence. But when you ignore it completely, you're saying it's not even real enough to acknowledge. It's like someone saying you have 3 heads. You wouldn't defend against that. You'd ignore it because it's absurd. Treat all accusations the same way. The next time someone attacks your character, do this instead. Slow down. Physically slow your movements. Breathe deeper. Speak slower if you speak at all. Make them feel the weight of calm confidence. Because rushed defense screams guilt, but measured silence radiates power. You're not in a hurry to clear your name because your name doesn't need clearing. You're not desperate to be understood because understanding is their job, not yours. You've spent years building a reputation as someone who explains themselves. Someone who needs to be understood. Someone who can't handle misunderstanding. And that reputation is why people keep testing you. They know you'll take the bait. They know you'll dance when they play the music. They know you'll break under pressure. It's time to build a new reputation, one where your silence speaks louder than their accusations ever could. You want to know what separates the amateurs from the masters? Amateurs ignore attacks. Masters transform them into weapons. When someone calls you arrogant, you don't just stay silent. You tilt your head slightly and say, confidence does bother the insecure, doesn't it? When someone says you're manipulative, you respond with, only people who can't be influenced say that. You're not defending. You're revealing their weakness. You're making their attack expose their own insecurity. But you can't pull this off. You know why? Because you still care if they're right. You still wonder if maybe you are arrogant. Maybe you are manipulative. Maybe you are all the things they say. And that self-doubt bleeds through everything you do. It shows in your eyes. It reveals itself in your hesitation. It exposes itself in your need to check if people agree with you. You're so busy judging yourself that you've given everyone else permission to judge you too. Here's the ultimate reversal technique. When someone attacks you personally, you respond about them psychologically. They say, "You're so fake." You say, "You seem really focused on authenticity lately." What's that about? They say, "You think you're better than everyone." You say, "Interesting that you interpret confidence as superiority." You've just made them the subject. You've turned the spotlight. You've made them defend their perception instead of you defending your character. You think this is manipulation. Good. It is. Everything is manipulation. Your defending is manipulation too. You're trying to manipulate people into seeing you as innocent. But that's weak manipulation, obvious manipulation, desperate manipulation. What I'm teaching you is power manipulation, the kind that makes people question themselves instead of you, the kind that shifts the entire frame without anyone noticing, the kind that wins without fighting. Let me teach you about the aura of untouchability. It's not built in a day. It's built through consistent non-reaction. Every time you don't defend, you add a layer. Every time you don't explain, you build the mystique. Every time you don't justify, you increase the distance between you and everyone else. Until eventually, people stop trying. Not because you fought them off, but because attacking you feels pointless, like shouting at a mountain. You're still making the same mistake. You think this is about being emotionless. You think this is about being robotic. Wrong. This is about being selective. You still laugh. You still engage. You still connect. But when someone tries to put you on trial, you simply don't show up to court. You refuse to participate in their frame. You continue being yourself while they exhaust themselves trying to get your attention. Watch what happens when you master this. People start approaching you differently. They stop testing you because they know it won't work. They stop pushing your buttons because they can't find them anymore. They stop trying to get reactions because you've trained them that it's impossible. You literally reshape how people interact with you. You force them to approach you with respect because anything else is ineffective. Here's a technique you're too weak to implement. When someone publicly attacks you, wait until they're completely finished. Let them get it all out. Let them feel like they've made their point. Then look at someone else and continue the previous conversation as if nothing happened. Not rudely, not dismissively, just naturally, like their words were literally just background noise. The attacker will feel invisible. The room will feel the power shift, and you'll look untouchable. You know what your problem is? You think respect comes from being right. You think people will admire you if you just prove your point well enough. But respect comes from being unmovable, from being consistent, from being someone whose emotional state can't be hijacked by anyone else's words. When you defend yourself, you show that words can move you. When you don't, you show that you're beyond that level of influence. Let me give you the masterclass in frame control. Someone accuses you of something serious. Instead of defending, you say, "What would you like me to say to that?" Not sarcastically, genuinely curious, like you're studying their need for your response. They'll stutter. They'll say they want the truth. You respond, "You seem to have already decided what the truth is." Now they're defending their accusation while you're just observing their emotional state. You've completely flipped the dynamic. You're reading this, thinking you could never do that. You're right, you couldn't. Because you're still stuck believing that being good matters more than being powerful. You still think that clearing your name matters more than controlling the frame. You still think that being understood matters more than being respected. And those beliefs are exactly why you'll keep losing every social power game you play. Here's what happens when you fully embody this principle. Your very presence changes. People feel it when you walk into a room. There's something about someone who doesn't need to defend themselves. Something unsettling. Something powerful. Something that makes others careful around them. Not from fear of aggression, but from fear of irrelevance. Because the worst thing isn't being attacked. It's being ignored by someone who matters. You want practical steps. Here they are. First, practice the 3-second pause before responding to anything emotional. Second, develop 5 go-to phrases that acknowledge without defending. Interesting perspective. I'll think about that. That's one way to see it. Okay, if you say so. Third, study your body language. No shoulder raising. No nervous laughing. No rapid blinking. Your body stays calm even if your mind races. Fourth, never use more words than your attacker. If they use 10 words to attack, you use 5 to respond. Or none. The transformation isn't instant. You'll fail. You'll defend yourself out of habit. You'll explain when you shouldn't. You'll justify when no justification is needed. But each time you catch yourself and stop, you get stronger. Each time you bite your tongue instead of defending, you build power. Each time you let an accusation die in silence, you gain respect. Not from them, from yourself. You know what the biggest shift will be? You'll stop attracting attacks altogether, because people only attack those they see as reactive, those they see as emotional, those they see as controllable. When you become truly undefensive, you become uninteresting to attackers. They move on to easier targets, to people like you used to be, to people who still take the bait. Here's my challenge for you. For the next 7 days, don't defend yourself once. Not once. Someone calls you lazy, don't explain your work ethic. Someone says you're selfish, don't list your good deeds. Someone questions your intelligence, don't prove your credentials. Just respond with one of those neutral phrases or with silence. Watch what happens. Watch how uncomfortable people get. Watch how they backtrack. Watch how they start treating you differently. But you won't do it. You'll try for maybe one day. Then someone will hit a nerve. Someone will say something that feels too important to ignore. Someone will attack something you actually care about. And you'll break. You'll defend. You'll explain. You'll justify. And you'll prove once again that you're exactly who I said you were. Someone who values being understood over being powerful. Someone who needs approval more than respect. Someone who will always be controlled by other people's opinions. The choice is simple. Keep defending yourself and stay weak, or master silence and become untouchable. Keep explaining yourself and remain beneath everyone, or stop participating in their frame and rise above it. Keep taking the bait and stay predictable, or become someone whose reactions can't be bought with words. You know which choice you'll make, the same one you always make, the weak one. Prove me wrong.